With its nautical styling, its 150-meter water resistance, and the somewhat subtle rotating bezel, the Traska Seafarer kind of sounds like a stealth dive watch. So does it live up to the claim? Let's find out. First, let's get into the stats for this Traska Seafarer. So this is the third generation of this watch, the reference number 5223. It's a 38.5 millimeter case size. I think that's about the size of the bezel side to side. It's got a 46 millimeter lug-to-lug measurement. It's about 11.3 millimeters tall. I think that's including the crystal. It's got 20 millimeter lugs, so that's a very standard lug size. Makes it easy to switch straps if you like. And it does have drilled lugs, so it's easy to remove them as well. Remove the bracelet as well. It's got this domed sapphire crystal, as you can see. It's got some anti-reflective coating on the underside of it, apparently. And I measured mine at 122 grams. That's with a couple of the links taken out for the bracelet. So that's probably most of the links out. So stock might be, I don't know, 130 or so. And although it's a 38 millimeter case size, the actual face itself is maybe about 25 millimeters, just as a very rough measurement of mine. So the face itself is actually quite small. These hands are fairly small on the watch. Next, let's get into the functionality of the watch. So the big thing about this watch, its raison d'etre, as it were, is this crown right here at 2 o'clock. So you unscrew the crown, and that's what lets you move this dive bezel around. So it's bi-directional, unlike a traditional dive watch, or what we think of as a traditional dive watch with a external bezel. This bezel is internal to the crystal. So if you pull out the crown and it screws down, you can rotate it around like so. So unlike a external bezel dive watch, this is bi-directional. You don't have to only rotate it counterclockwise. And once you've got it in position, once you got it how you like it, you press in the crown again and screw it down like that. So that is the part of the big functionality of this watch. It takes influence from a generation of watches called super compressor watches. I guess those date from like the 1950s, 1960s. And I think maybe someone correct me if you know more about the history of dive watches than I do, but I believe this was sort of how dive watches started out, that the external rotating bezel was not always a feature of dive watches. So this is kind of a style that, was more popular in the 50s, 60s. It had kind of gone out of fashion for a long time, but there are other brands bringing it back now. So this is kind of a unique thing for this watch, and is still fairly rare in the industry. So one thing that distinguishes this Seafarer, the third generation, from the previous two generations is that this crown does screw down. Previously, it was just a free rotating crown. So the problem with that was that if it didn't screw down, any motion, like of your skin against the crown on your wrist, could set it out of alignment. So you have to then push it in again to screw it back down. So, okay, I've been able to do this successfully as I demonstrate this, but the big catch with this is that because it's a screw down, you have to unscrew it, move it around, push it in, screw it. And I'm trying to demonstrate this, but this actually doesn't always work. Sometimes you push it in, and is it threaded? Is it not? It's kind of hard to tell. And yeah, you can kind of whack it out of alignment as you're trying to thread it back in again. So as much as I'd like to say this solves the issue from the previous generations where it doesn't get locked out of alignment, you really notice this when you're trying to reset it back to 12 o'clock. So I'll push it in right there. And okay, yeah, it didn't quite catch the threads right there, so I had to do it again. And there it happened again. So as much as I want to say like, yeah, okay, this is, much better than a normal dive watch because you can really keep it in place, or it doesn't dominate the bezel styling of the watch, it is a bit finicky. So I'll say that up front. That is my big complaint about this watch. Most of the time it works fine, but every now and again, yeah, you're trying to line it up like that, and oops, didn't quite catch. So while I commend Traska for trying to address the common complaints about the first two generations of the watch regarding the getting it knocked out of alignment like this, it doesn't I think there is supposed to be some mechanism where if you push it in far enough, it disengages the rotation and doesn't let it rotate anymore as you thread it in. But it's not quite there yet, I think. Another thing is it rotates freely. There aren't clicks like on a normal external bezel. There's usually 50 or usually 60 or 120 clicks alongside the bezel as it rotates. But this just sort of freely rotates. So you aren't locked into a certain track, but it does make it hard to align sometimes when you want to get it back to 12 o'clock. So I think that is the unique feature, the advantage of this watch, but also the biggest weakness is that it doesn't work quite as the way you would like it to. And you can adjust this while it's on wrist, but it's a little finicky. You want to have the watch fairly loose because arm hair tends to get snagged in here and catch on it if it's on your wrist as you screw it in. And then, of course, this is a 3-hand watch, so the 4 o'clock crown unscrews, and then that's the traditional, pull the crown to stop the watch and adjust the time. So once it is a very traditional, simple watch. There's the 2 o'clock bezel, which has the unique rotating crown feature. The other big thing about the dive watch styling here is the lume. So this is BGW9 Super Lume Nova lume, which maybe if you know a lot more about dive watches, you're a lot more familiar with it than I am. But apparently it's quite good. It's blue lume. So it's fairly effective. The fact that the hands are somewhat small, maybe deceptively small. In this video, I'm just showing you the watch up close, but they are somewhat small compared to a more normal rotating bezel dive watch. So they are quite visible in the dark, but it doesn't last well. It lasts a fair deal, but they're not quite as bright as larger hands would be. And another thing is the bezel is also lumed, like the pip, these markers, and the digits are also lumed, but it's probably thinner on that part of it. So those are the dimmest part of it, and they do fade quicker. So I wouldn't anticipate being able to read the bezel in the lume if that's important to you. One very important topic I want to cover with this watch as well is legibility. So I'm going to set the watch to 9 o'clock right now, and I'll first of all, I want you to look at it and let me know if you I'll let you look at it for a second here. Let me know if you see any issues with it right now. So if you look at it at 9 o'clock right now, maybe you'll start to see the issue. And maybe if I give it a lume shot, you'll see more of what I'm talking about. So the big legibility issue I have with this watch is you can see that the hour indices at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock are these kind of elongated hour markers. But when we're at 9 o'clock like this, or when we're at 6 o'clock like this, you can see that it kind of looks like there's just 2 long minute hands right here. We also catch it at 3 o'clock right here. So within, 3, 6, or 9 o'clock, and maybe about 5 minutes or so either way, you can see that the fact that the hand and the elongated indices right there kind of make it look like there's 2 minute hands. So on one hand, if you look at it if you're looking at it in detail like this, you can see that, there's sort of this gap between the hour hand and the index there. Or if you know it's about 3 o'clock, you look at it and say, of course it's 3 o'clock. But what that does is if you're not anticipating that, or if you're just glancing at it really quickly offhand, then that can kind of get sort of confusing. It's especially confusing if you're looking at it when there's only lume. Like if you have it on your wrist overnight and it's 3 a.m. and you look at it, you might think, what? Especially the lume's kind of faded. So this is the big legibility issue with this watch. It's just sort of an unfortunate side effect of the styling. A lot of dive watches have larger, different shaped hour hands. I think that's part of the things you have to have if you're a certified dive watch that this watch doesn't quite have. So it's a little unfortunate. However, once you're away from that, once you're away from 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, this watch is actually extremely legible. Despite the hands having the same shape, they're very distinct in length. The minute hand goes all the way out to the minute track, so it's easy to check the precise minutes. And just generally, the shape of the hands most of the time are extremely legible. It's very easy to tell. The indices are prominent. The hour hand goes almost out to the index, but not quite. So most of the time, the watch is extremely legible and very easy to read. But unfortunately, yeah, it's just these particular times, 3, 6, 9 o'clock. 12 isn't really an issue because, yeah, the hands are just overlapping each other. But yeah, there is that unfortunate legibility issue that does pop up at those times. So I would want to warn anybody else about that before they thought about picking up this watch. As far as the styling of the watch goes, this particular example is in what's called steel blue. Traska uses this color across a couple of their different watches. I don't really think of it as steel. Like, I'm filming on a kind of a cloudy day, so the color isn't really coming through here. It's almost more of a pastel color. It's kind of bright. Traska does also offer this watch in, I think in charcoal gray, I believe it's called, or maybe it's charcoal black, but sort of a gray color, a black color, and sort of a kind of a funky sort of red salmon color. But I got this one, and I kind of wish I'd gotten almost any of the other colors, because while this isn't too bad by itself, it's sort of hard to match with everything. It doesn't really line up with a lot of other blues like you'd have in a shirt or something like that. I feel like it goes well with sort of lighter colored clothing, especially like white sleeve shirts and things like that. And if you have short sleeves on, I think it's fine. But, while nobody comes to me for fashion advice, but I do feel like this color is really hard to match with just about anything else. So I would advise anybody, unless you really like this color, to look at one of the other ones in the Seafarer range if you do want to get a Seafarer. But it's not too bad, I guess. It does look, it's very subtle. It doesn't look like almost any other watch you find out there. So I don't know. I suppose it depends on how well you like this particular color. And aside from that, the styling of the watch is, it's very legible. It's very clear. The hour markers are pure Lume, these pips, and everything's fairly heavy loomed. The way the markers sort of extend outward make it very easy to check the hour markers. I think overall the styling is pretty well executed. The crowns, if I can screw that in there. The crowns have two different logos. There's a Traska logo and this I think this logo apparently brings to mind other super compressor watches of the era. And aside from that, the case is very well styled, I think. It has a somewhat concave face to it. Oh, I'm sorry, convex. So it actually makes it look very slim when you're viewing at it off angle, like on someone's wrist or something like that. And despite me not being a huge fan of kind of bubble crystals like this, I do think it's pretty well executed. So overall, I do like the styling of the watch. Despite the indices kind of causing those legibility issues, they do look pretty nice. I think this is fairly unique and recognizable, but subtle as well. So as you can see, this is a mechanical watch. The movement is the Miyota 9039, manufactured here in Nagano, in fact. And as you can see by the smooth sweep, it's got a 4 Hertz tick rate, so it ticks 4 times per second. And I really think that's quite a lot nicer than 3 Hertz. 3 Hertz is certainly nice, but just this, 4 is significantly smoother. It looks very nice as it moves around. Kind of gives the illusion of perpetual motion much more than 3 Hertz. So this is a no-date movement. So there isn't, the knock on some no-date watches is they use movements with a date and just don't put it in the date wheel. But this is a no-date movement. So if you pull the crown and pull it out one click, it's just the one click, and then it's just immediate adjustments. No double clicks, no anything else. So then one big downside that a lot of people have about, one bit that they give about Miyota movements is that there's rotor noise. So because this is an automatic watch, it's not manual wind, it is automatic. If you swing the watch around a little bit, you'll hear the rotor kind of whizzing around inside of it. And I don't really mind that. I think it's kind of part of the mechanical charm, but I know some people don't like Miyota movements for this particular reason. And then one big advantage of using a off-the-shelf Miyota movement like this is that it's a widely manufactured unit. Like, you're not going to have any issues in the future getting parts for it, just because lots of watches use this, and it should be pretty standard. And as far as its performance goes, I'm getting about 10 seconds, about a gain of 10 seconds every day out of it, fairly reliably. Like a lot of mechanical watches, if you have it on your wrist, it keeps better time. Probably the heat of it being on your wrist is how it's tuned. So it's running consistently a little bit fast like that. It's within spec, and it also means that, if you just need to set the time again, just pull the crown, wait for time to catch up, and then then you should be all right. So it's not too hard to, yeah, there isn't a lot of variance. It seems to have been settled into about that level. I know Traska apparently regulates the watches as they get them, so it seems to be what I would consider acceptable spec, especially for this amount of money. And yes, once you do pull the crown, of course, the hands move very reliably, no swing. It's very easy to adjust the time like this quickly. So it is I'd say a pretty solid mechanical movement, and definitely keeps the charm of mechanical movements if that's what you're asking for. So next I'll talk about the bracelet and the clasp. So the bracelet is a fairly traditional oyster style 3-link bracelet. When I got it, actually, it squeaked quite a bit. I was fairly disappointed, actually. Both of the end links would go squeak, 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 squeak. So I made a quick video. I'll show a couple clips from that. So I emailed Traska about it, and they said that I should remove the bracelet and soak it in baby oil for a while. I was having a little trouble getting the bracelet off, so I went and bought some baby oil and just, applied it to both sides of the both of the end links right here. And to its credit, that completely fixed it. Just a little bit of baby oil, rubbed in through the links on the bracelet, and now it's been completely squeak-free since then. So fortunately, yeah, I didn't have to disassemble it. I didn't have to really do anything besides get like a, bottle of baby oil. So that worked pretty well. And then once it got rid of the squeak, I have to say this bracelet is just really, really good. So it feels nice. It feels smooth. The links are fairly connected like this. They fully articulate like this. So you don't have to worry about them being sort of stiff and poking outwards. It will just immediately slope down to conform to your wrist size. So it's a little bit thinner than I like, but it's generally a great bracelet. And it also uses these screw links. So I just got a real cheap screwdriver, maybe not even $2 or $3, and you just have to get one sized to this size, and you just literally get it in. You can unscrew the links, and then size the bracelet to your wrist, and you can easily take them out, put them back in, adjust it however you like. So yeah, this is I think a really great bracelet. I certainly wouldn't mind if it was sort of a Jubilee bracelet like my Seiko here. But, if you're going to go for an oyster bracelet, this is just about as good as you're going to get at this price range, I feel like. And then you can see on the clasp here, there's a sort of perlage design, I guess it's called, which looks kind of fancy, but you're only going to see that when you open the watch yourself. And then another big thing about the bracelet is this clasp. So it's quite large. It's got the Traska logo on it. So it is a big clasp, to be sure. This is almost about as big as the lug-to-lug on the watch. So the reason it's so big is that it has this micro-adjust system. I think there are something like 5 different levels. So you hold down this button right here to extend it. So here it is at its maximum extent. And then you push in the links like this to shorten it. So like something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're a little hard to get precisely, but you just open it again like that and size it how you want. So that is a significant amount of adjustment you can do. You can't do it when it's on wrist. You have to kind of take it off to adjust it like this. But that's a pretty significant field of adjustment you can make on this watch very easily. And then there are also, there's I think 3, no, there are no micro adjust holes. So it's just the clasp itself. But yeah, the advantage of this clasp is just this big level of adjustment you can make. It's basically like adding or removing another link at its maximum extent. And then, yeah, the closing action is pretty nice as well. Just nice solid close, very easy to open. Feels very well designed and manufactured. So the disadvantage is it is a large clasp. If you want to if your wrist might bang into something or scratch on something when you have this on, then you should keep that in mind. Like I have a toddler at home, and if my toddler is, if I need to pick her up or something like that, it makes it hard to do so without worrying that I'm going to scratch her with this clasp, or it would be uncomfortable. So as functional as it is large. So I would keep that in mind if you're interested in getting a Traska. So if you're watching this, you probably know that Traska is a so-called Microbrands. They're not a big watch manufacturer. They're fairly new. They're only a couple of years old, and they've built sort of a name for themselves in the enthusiasts world. But yeah, they aren't a major manufacturer, and they don't manufacture their own watches. So I think they don't make a secret of this, but they don't really advertise it a whole lot. they manufacture their watches probably in maybe Hong Kong, maybe mainland China. I don't quite know. Maybe somewhere else in Asia. So if you're a big fan of Microbrand watches, you're probably aware of Traska's kind of their selling points, their marketing, what they claim. And you might also be aware that a lot of these features are available in other Microbrands as well. So like if you read reviews of Traska's, they often make a big note of the fact that there's this hardness coating on the watch. Both the bracelet and watch body are coated with something that gives them makes them harder and more resistant to scratches. The stat is like, what is it, 1,200 hardness Vickers or something like that. There's some stat about that they're very keen to mention on their website, things like that. But if you look around, there are other brands that offer that, like for example, just when I did a quick search, Astor and Banks, Vare, Second Hour, Tsao Baltimore, Bowcraft. So those are all manufacturers which quote the exact same hardness Vickers rating. So it's probably an option on whatever manufacturer they use. Same thing with this clasp, like, it's great. And of course, Traska marketing calls a lot of attention to it. But like Bowcraft, like I mentioned earlier, seems to use this exact same clasp, probably with their branding on it. I think San Martin, which is a Chinese brand, I think they might be the manufacturer, or maybe they just use the same part or something like that. They seem to have the same clasp as well. So this is probably an engineered part for a manufacturer in somewhere in Asia, which is offered to Traska and other Microbrands as well. So I guess while I'm not going to knock it, like clearly this is a well-manufactured watch and the manufacturing expertise is there. And I wouldn't expect Traska to be like, Seiko or somebody to have all the money to do everything in-house. But I would say that if you like the stats on the Traska, if you like how it works, but you don't really like the styling, you may be able to find, essentially the same watches they make or similar watches from other Microbrands and be relatively confident that you're getting kind of the same thing. I guess that's kind of the dream about Microbrands, is that, you make it from off the shelf, reliable parts, hopefully well manufactured, and that you can kind of customize it or find something that speaks to you particularly, knowing that even if the brand goes out of business, like, it's a Miyota movement, so you can get it serviced. A lot of Microbrands use Seiko movements as well. So ideally, yeah, you're getting kind of something closer to what you want that the major manufacturers might not have cause to make, but is kind of still hopefully made of reliable parts. So next I'll get into my likes about the watch. The thing I like the most about it, it's just really comfortable on wrist. Despite being 122 grams, it feels very light, like the weight is very well balanced. The bracelet feels great. I know the clasp is large. I've heard people say that it kind of bangs on the desk as they use a computer, but I haven't found that myself. I haven't had any problems with that. So it's very comfortable. It's kind of well built, well weighted, no problems there. It's finished very well. Like, it's not really lacking for anything. It certainly doesn't feel like there's any cheap parts of it. Some parts are polished. I don't quite have the vocabulary about very precise parts of the watch and how they're polished, but the finish is very nice. It's kind of shiny, but not obnoxiously so. It just feels, just solid, well manufactured. It's not really lacking for anything in the finishing. And if I had to give one thing I like the most about this watch, was a little goofy, is I love that seconds hand. Like, I love that kind of pip right there. I like how it's moves so smoothly. I think it's probably this style of second hand was made famous by Rolex. This might be the Explorer. I'm not too familiar with the details of all of Rolex's models, and Traska's styling carries much influence from several Rolex models, to put it mildly. But I love how that second hand looks. I love how visible it is. I love watching the pip go around, and it is loomed. So to be honest, giving up the second hands on this watch is almost is almost the thing keeping me with this watch more than any other. And I also like the bracelet. It's just so easy to adjust. We're kind of moving into summer here, so as my wrist gets sweatier, it's very easy, if it feels tight, to open it up. If it feels loose, to close it down. And even just taking a link in or out is a real simple process. So the bracelet and the comfort level of the watch are just great. So on the other side, I'll get into some of my dislikes. So the thing, the thing I have to call the most attention to that I did mention earlier is the bezel. Like it just, if you can align it well, that's great. You know, if you can aim it just where you want it and get it in, okay, nice, then it worked. But even if it's, you know, 1 out of every 3 times, 1 out of every 5 times, you kind of lose confidence in your ability to adjust it. I wish there was, maybe a firmer way to like click in and ensure that it was in place. You know, maybe if the bezel had clicks instead of freely rotating, maybe that would be a little easier. But yeah, when you really notice it is when you're trying to adjust it back to 12. If it worked, then great. But because you're trying to catch the threading, it's not always going to work right off the bat. Like that time. So I don't know if other dual crown watches have the same issue, but it is compared to a dive watch with an external bezel like this Seiko, like it is harder to use and just a little bit frustrating. And this is sort of a petty issue that I can't fault Traska for, but as I wear this a lot, I find myself missing a date window a lot. So this is a dateless movement, which means it can be thinner. But yeah, I do find myself, as soon as I wear a dateless watch, kind of constantly going like, wait, what day is it today? Like, you have to do something tomorrow, like, or is it next Tuesday? I don't know. Like, so I do miss that. And then maybe my final complaint about the watch is that on mine, the ends of the lugs right here are a bit pokey and sharp. So I think this is one issue with doing the external manufacturing like Traska does, is that there are probably a lot of QA issues that they would like to solve, but because the manufacturer is probably sending them big batches of watches, I don't know how much time they have to spend on each individual watch. So this bit right here is a bit pokey and sharp on mine, and the corners of the clasp also tend to get a little pokey. So that's why if I have to pick up my toddler daughter, I have to be careful when I'm wearing this watch. So none of these are horrible. And I feel like in general, if someone likes this watch and they're pleased with it a lot, then, that's great. But those were the issues I found with it. So if we go back to the original premise, is this a stealth dive watch? Does it fly under the radar? Are you getting everything you could have gotten out of a dive watch, but in a more subtle traditional package with this? So my conclusion was no. There's 2 things. First of all, it's the ambiguity of the hour hand at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Whereas I believe traditional dive watches need to have a distinct hour hand that's always discernible from the minute hand. And the bezel, with a normal dive watch and with the external bezel, it's very easy to just twist it to your liking, get it where you want it, and then that's that. But this, because you have to unscrew it, because it's finicky, I think that while both of those don't impede daily use if you don't mind them, you can't really call it a dive watch per se, even though it has 150 meters of water resistance. You could certainly take it underwater, but a traditional dive watch does have more functionality that I think is certainly worth something. So the last question I always try to ask is, who is this watch for? So I think if you really like the styling on this watch, if it just kind of makes you happy, if it pleases you, and you don't plan on using the bezel especially often, maybe just every now and again, like not something you're going to be using several times per day, then I'd say, yeah, go for it. Like it's, it's well styled, it's well built, it's reliable. The hardness coating, I haven't put it to the test yet, but I haven't put a single scratch in this over a couple of months. So I don't have any reason to doubt the claims that it's durable and scratch resistant. So if it does seem appealing to you and you're not especially hung up on the bezel performance, then then sounds good. But if you really want reliable bezel, if you're going to use it often, I would suggest going for a more traditional external bezel dive watch. Traska makes one called the Free Diver, which I'm actually looking at quite a bit right now. So I think I'm probably going to sell this one on. I don't know how much I'll be able to get for it, but I think I'm probably going to get something else in Traska's lineup with a date window. But I hope this has helped anybody who's interested in one of these and is thinking about picking them up. So thanks, and see you next time.